Webster defines a journey as traveling from one place to another. But in Journey to the Overland, you'll do a lot more than just travel. From the moment your character leaves his hometown, you'll begin to experience the encounters and adventures that could only take place in Journey to the Overland. Whether you're new to fantasy gaming or an old role-playing veteran, you'll feel right at home, yet uncomfortably new to the world of Overland. Far more than a board game, but not quite role-playing, Journey to the Overland combines the best elements of each. Set in a world where sorcery, magic, and might are the greatest powers, and surviving is the only law, Journey to the Overland gives you what the other games won't, a chance to tackle it all alone. With its unique encounter cards, various scenarios, and extensive use of non-playing characters, you have everything you need to enjoy hours of travels and adventures. But the only way to truly appreciate the commitment and dedication that went into this game is to grab your favorite figure, grab the dice, and start playing. Welcome to a way of gaming you will never leave, because once you begin it, there's no returning from. A journey to the Overland. Welcome to the next installment of Journey to the Overland. So the last time we left, I had wrote up my character, and it's in the getting started video. I kind of explained what the different statistics went for. I also kind of went over some of the rest of the character sheet. Not too much detail, but like, you know, keeping track of your possessions and things like that. So in order to just get into the game, what we're going to do this game is I'm going to actually start my adventure. Now, one of the things I like to do is I like to journal kind of the beginning. And right here I've kind of created a small backstory for my character. I'm not going to read this, but I will type the text and I will put it up. I will see if I can stick it in between here and when we begin. So I'm gonna let you read that and just kind of give you an idea of how my character Maverick is going to be starting out. Okay, and so if you're kind of wondering what that refers to, what the text refers to when he talks about the fire, one of the things that occurs in the game is there's a dragon that's basically terrorizing the land. And I don't even know if you can call it terrorizing. His name is the dragon Valron, and he's been around longer than most of the people. So, but every 2 weeks you have to roll on the table because he will fly out and attack a certain portion or a certain town in the kingdom, and you resolve that. Now, this is something most players might forget. So what I would recommend is maybe you get a token or something and leave it out so that it reminds you that every 2 weeks you need to make this check with regards to an attack by the dragon Valron. And I'm trying to see where it mentions that in the rules. Well, it's right here. Okay, so where it says check for dragon flight every month, and I'm sorry, it's not every 2 weeks. It's once a month. Roll on the dragon Valron attack table to determine what town or castle he attacks that month, unless Valron has been slain and has not returned yet. So there's actually a mechanic where you can kill the dragon. So don't forget to do that, because that's very important. And as in my case, it actually is going to give me some background fluff, because that's kind of what he's referring to. He's referring to an attack, and obviously his mother was killed in one of these attacks. And so that's Maverick's motivation, is he's starting out
and he's trying to avenge his mother's death. Now he realizes, as a basic guy, there's nothing he can do against a dragon, but he has an ideal in his head of how he can take on this dragon. And that's why in his story he says he saw himself fighting him, and he says, and I was winning. And so that's going to form the background of his story. And just to kind of give you an idea of what's in his head, I haven't journaled this yet, is one is there's an order of people that fight dragons in the kingdom. They're trained by dwarves. Most of them are dwarves. They're called dragon slayers. So one of the things he is thinking about is going to Dwarf Haven, which is the dwarves' castle, and learning to become a dragon slayer. The other thing he's thinking about is the weapons of power. There's 5 legendary weapons of power basically hidden throughout the Overland, that with one or more of these weapons he could destroy the dragon Valron. So he's thinking of taking on the dragon Valron. The third way is amassing an army and basically marching on Valron's cave and fighting him in battle and using your troops and stuff to try to defeat him, which there's rules mechanics for that. So this is kind of what's in his head right now, right? How he's going to do this is what we're going to see as the story plays out. So okay, we're back. So I've kind of got my map set up, and let's see if I can focus in a little bit for you. There is my character, and that's a prototype miniature for the game that I'm using to represent Maverick. He's starting in Milesteel, and like I said, in order to remember that the dragon attacks, I've kind of just set this here on the dragon's home. It doesn't really represent anything right now. It's just kind of a reminder. So like, say he attacks this town down here called Zafton. You know, I could move him there, resolve that attack, and then, you know, put him back. And you can use whatever you want. I don't even remember where I got that figure from. I just thought it would come in handy, and it did. I've actually taken my game map and cut it in half. And that's just for purposes of the video. Plus I got a lot more around here. I wouldn't recommend that you cut yours in half, but I mean, you could probably fold it or something if you wanted to just set it up on a smaller table like a kitchen or something like I'm doing here. So the first thing I decided that he's going to do is seek news and information. And so in order to seek news and information, well, before I do that, I'm going to kind of give you, let me go over kind of my setup and kind of some of the things I've got laid out and prepared so that it can make kind of playing the game a little bit easier and facilitate it better. So let me do that, and then I'll be back, and we'll see what happens when he looks for news and information. Okay, so I've got out some of the things that I'm going to be using to play with. First of all, obviously, is my rule book. Now, this is actually not the rule book that comes with the game. This is it's a prototype rule book, one of the ones I did in my test prints that I got from, I think it was Amazon or CreateSpace does them. The problem with it is, I like this book. It's a lot brighter. Pages are a lot brighter. There's some typos in here that I never corrected because I found a different publisher before I had this, after I had this printed. So I didn't really bother to go back and reprint this with the corrections. They're minor typos, but I like using it because the pages are brighter. The cover's glossy. Okay, the rule book most of you will have, if you buy the game, is going to be this one here. This is a matte rule book. It looks thinner, but they're about the same. You know, you kind of got the pages and, you know, some color and some grayscale pictures. Again, I like this rule book. It's kind of, it has a kind of a nostalgic feel to it. But this rule book, I mean, it's probably cost me 1/3 of what it would have cost to do this rule book. So that's kind of why I obviously went with this to do the Kickstarter. But I just like this rule book, you know, and eventually I'm thinking of, if I do the Kickstarter over, of offering a hardcover version of the rule book. So that way you could go through it and it would be well protected. But we'll see. But anyway, you're going to need your rule book. These are some quick reference sheets that I printed off from Cheatography. I put all of the sheets up there that I think would apply to the game. So basically any table referred to in the game should be here. Now you probably can't read this from that camera, but I have a table for your experience points, for your daily actions, beginning play, your encounter table. There are tables for the random directions, your missile weapon table, hand weapon table, shield. Basically, it's 8 pages of tables. And not every table in the game is in here, but most of them that you would use on a regular playing basis are in here. So I would recommend highly that you print these pages out at Cheatography. I think if you type in Journey to the Overland, you'll see this table, this cheat sheet, as well as a fact where I answered a few questions from early people that had the game, as well as an errata on some of the game cards. Speaking of the cards, if you buy the game, you're going to get 2 different decks of cards. These are the encounter cards. So these are basically the people you will encounter in the world. Now, to be honest with you, you really don't need to shuffle these because you have no idea. You have no idea what you're going to encounter and what's a good card or not. Since I've looked at the bottom of this, what I'm going to do is just take kind of this guy off the bottom, mix him in there, and just kind of, I don't really want to shuffle them. I like them too much. I mean, you can shuffle them. I prefer not to. So I'm just going to cut that. And so this is your encounter card. So whenever you go out and you journey across the map and you roll on the encounter table, which if you can see that, so say you're entering, and you go by the terrain that you're entering. So say you're going into the mountains. If you roll 2 dice and you get 45% or less, that means you have to pull an encounter card. And when you pull an encounter card, it will tell you. So this person encountered the Bucephalus. The Bucephalus was actually Alexander the Great's horse. And a lot of these cards are based on historical figures. Some of them are based on fantasy figures and stories. It's just everything in fantasy that when I was this age I got exposed to, I kind of created a card for. So, and that's the cool thing I like about the game is it's not necessarily based on my game world, but based on fantasy in general. Now, obviously, I didn't use any copyrights, but I kind of took the characters as basically we call a typecast. So there were certain typecast characters that I would recreate in the game. So for this here, you get a winged gargoyle. I mean, all of us know what gargoyles are. So again, and the card will basically tell you how to resolve it. It'll usually tell you how far away how far away they are, because that's important as to whether or not you can get away or other things you're trying to decide to do. So you want to take out your encounter cards and sit them somewhere over there. This pack actually has 3 different decks, and I think it's 4 different decks. So you are going to have to sort these out. So the first ones you get will be your weather cards, and you can usually just tell those because it says weather down there in the corner. The next will be your event cards. Every week you will have 1 event, so you're going to want to separate those. Your quest cards, you really won't use the quest cards unless you're a knight, so I'd recommend just putting the quest cards back in the bag. You won't have a reason to be taking quests early in the game. So these are more weather, event, quest. So we're going to take all of the quest cards out, separate the event and the weather cards. Now, you will draw a weather card every day. You will draw an event card once a week. Okay? So we do that. And again, you can shuffle these if you want. I mean, at this point, like I said, it really doesn't matter because you don't really have any idea as to, let me just see if you can see here a little better. Since you don't really have any idea as to what's a good card or not. I mean, if you haven't played the game, so you don't necessarily have to shuffle them. So I'll put a quick shuffle on there. This is just a card thing I got out of an old, I think it was a Trivia Pursuit game. So I'm going to put my event cards here, my weather, and then when I turn them, I'll just put them on the bottom. But that way, the event card stays in play for the whole week too. So you pull it once a week, but you leave it up because whatever it says on there is going to be in effect for that whole week. And that will affect your decisions as to whether or not you're going to travel or what other things you're going to try to do. All right, and so these are our weather cards. I might put a label on there or something. All right, so that's going to get you as far as you got your cards, you got your tables, you got your rule book. You're going to need some kind of figure, or you could use a marker. The Kickstarter backers are going to be getting figures like these. Okay, I think I got it cut off there. But anyway, I was showing the figures that were funded with the stretch goals on the Kickstarter. So this is the guy I'm going to be using for Maverick. And what I've decided to do is, since he's only level 1, I'm not going to paint him. So I'm kind of setting a little goal for myself is once he gets to level, let's say 2 or 3, once he gets about 5,000 experience points, he survived about 5 or 6 battles, then I'll kind of paint him. We'll make it a little bit cooler. And eventually, if he levels up, so to speak, I probably will swap him out with another figure with more armor and all that stuff. But you can see here, this guy's kind of just, you know, he's your basic beginner. So, but you can use any figure. You can even use a token. You know, you don't need, you know, gobbles and gobbles of stuff. So the only other thing that I'm using, and this is all optional, is these are Pathfinder tokens. And the reason is, when you do a lot of the encounters, like I think you might have saw where I encountered a gargoyle. So, you know, I might could go through these Pathfinder tokens and use something to represent, you know, the gargoyle. Like this guy says Blade Lord, but he could be anybody with a sword and a bow. Same thing with this figure here. And the one thing I like about the Pathfinder tokens is, you know, the bigger ones are big. So this one is like some kind of earth elemental. I don't think that's Pathfinder, but anyway, he's available to me. You got this guy, you know, that looks like some kind of warlord. So there will be things in the rules, a large wolf, right, that I've decided that, well, if they come up, you know, then I'll be able to use these tokens. I think these are from Disney or somewhere. But again, I mean, these can work for anything in your game. The Pathfinder tokens are really, I'd recommend them because they cover a lot of subjects. Like say you the Bucephalus, for example, I could just put this up, and this would be the Bucephalus. And depending, like say it was 3 hexes away and I had to catch it, well, I put it on there and then I sit it on the map, right? And it's in the game. And so I have, you know, this might not cover everything. And I have a lot of miniatures that I could use, for example. But say you encounter a dwarf. This guy looks like some kind of dwarf guy. So, you know, you don't have to do these. You can just, you know, put in a pencil eraser or something there. All right. So if you have that stuff, and I mean, obviously you have a pencil, you know, a pen and an eraser, you're ready to go. So I think with that, what I'm going to do now is kind of get my setup back with the map and the figure. And we're going to pull our first event card to see what's going on this week. Because I was thinking about searching for news and information my first day. And then we'll see. So let's just see if we can get at least I'll see if I can play through his first week with you to give you a feel for the game. Okay, we're back with our basic setup. So I pulled the event card for the week, and we have slave market, which says a western slave market is trading through Overland. Each day there is a 60% chance you will encounter the slave market. If you encounter the market, you may purchase slaves at a cost of 50 gold each. All slaves have equal characteristics of 40%. Muscle, agility, presence, etc. Slaves must be fed daily or suffer normal penalties. Slaves may be sold at Fire Castle for 100 gold. So I'm not trying to become a slave trader right now, so that's not really going to affect me. Plus, I don't have 50 gold to buy slaves and then feed them. The weather for the day is rain. Characters traveling on foot without high boots, -1 from their movement. So normally if you travel on foot, I think you can move 2 hexes per day. So when it's raining, if you don't have the high boots, which helps you slog through the rain, I think you get reduced to 1 hex per day. So I'm probably not going to be traveling anyway. It says all characters also subtract 10 from their agility. That means if you're out trying to fight in the rain. Yeah, so it says here the movement rates for walking is 2 hexes per day. So I'm not going to be traveling. I think I will stay in town and seek the news and information. But it is raining, so let's queue up some rain. And this is a pretty cool app I have in the background. It's called Storyteller. So it kind of creates sounds for you for role playing. So I'm going to be using that. You know, you might want to look it up if you're interested. All right, so my first daily action is I am going to check for news and information just to see what's going on in town. And there's a table for that. The reason I like checking for news and information is it actually gives you, it creates a character arcs or adventure arcs where it allows you to maybe get some income by completing something that may be a simple task, or, you know, it may be more involved. But it's a good way to kind of see if there's anything else you can do besides, you know, working for somebody. You know, it's kind of like trying to see what's going on around town. I think I thought I put the news and information table in here. If not, we'll go to the book. So let me look that up. Okay, we're back. So I found the table. But I wanted to show you this kind of as getting started. Once you've got your setup, this kind of on page 9 of the rule book, it'll tell you, you pull an event card. So we already did that. You pull a weather card, which you can hear we have our weather card. You choose a daily action. Okay, and then for the daily actions that you can pick from, you go to page 11. And so it says rest to heal wounds, travel, engage in a battle, town activities, which that's part of news information, go to work, build or repair something, practice or train. So we decided we're going to do news and information, which is part of the town activities. So news and information is going to be on page 86. But you also want to pay attention to town and castle activities. Whenever you're going there, you should go here first, because this is going to tell you things that you need to do when you're in a town, such as purchase lodging. So since I didn't leave the town, I have to pay for lodging for the day, which is going to cost me 10 silver pieces. And it says if you do not pay this fee, there's a 75% chance of being robbed, which means I could lose all the stuff I've already bought. This is the hire help table, which I might do later on. Seek an audience with a mayor. But for our purposes, we're going to roll on the news and information table. See if I can find out anything that's going to help me. So let's just see. I'm going to use the red as the 10 die. So I rolled a 57. So if we go here, 51 to 60. All right, let me read this. Okay, so this is interesting. Basically, this tells me there's a merchant that lives a hex away from here who has a winged Pegasus for sale. It costs 1,000 gold pieces, and you'd have to pass a presence check in order to buy it off of him. The interesting thing is I could actually move to where he's at, and it would count as still being inside the town. So he lives within the town, I guess. Which means I wouldn't have to check for an encounter to get to his hex. And for game purposes, it says I would still be within the town. So that would actually... I'd still take the penalty for the rain, but I wouldn't have to check for an encounter since I'm not entering any new terrain. But I'm not going to do that. So what I am going to do is I'm going to pay my 10 silver for my lodging. Yeah, and then I guess that's going to end my day. I got to eat my food, and then I'm going to end my day. Okay, so we're back for day 2. I did a little bookkeeping while I was away. So you can see his silver's down to 66. His meals are down to 9. There really wasn't any other effect from that. One thing I'll show you is on my adventure table. I like to just kind of do a little bar thing. So I did 7 days. I scratched off day 1, and you can see the ones that are left. I don't know. I may actually create a table or something that you could mark like Fantasy Flight does. I don't know. It just seems like it's a lot of clutter. So right now I just like to do it like that. But anyway, what I've been thinking about is, I did put a weather card, and it's windy today. So I'm gonna cue up a little wind, and I'll show you the card. So it says all characters add 1 to their movement rate. So actually yesterday wouldn't have been a good day to travel because we were minusing 1. Today would be a great day to travel because we could do 3. And one of the things I'm thinking about is I could get from 1, 2, 3, I could get into Zafton, which is the next town up. So I could either check for news and information there, I could seek an audience with their mayor. I might even be able to trade some things depending on, if I bought anything here. I'm not really a merchant, but sometimes you can sell stuff. You can always sell anything you got for half of what you paid for. So that would actually be good because I wouldn't get stuck outside. The problem is I want to hire some help. So that's going to put me off a day, but then that means I'm going to lose the good wins. But the other problem is the longer I stay in town, the faster I'm going to run out of silver pieces. So that'll put me down to 56. And I mean, I could roll on the higher help table, which I was looking at. And I could wind up getting like a farm boy. I mean, what good is that going to do? Or there could be no help available. So I don't know. It's kind of a hard choice. I could set out on my own and then risk getting attacked or something else because I'm probably definitely going to have an encounter. Or I could stay in town and seek to hire help. Alright, so what I'm going to do is see what help I can get. I'll let you know what I come up with. Okay, so I met with mixed results. I rolled a, let's see if you can see that. I rolled a 31. I was using the 3 as the 10 die. So at first I was afraid I got the farm boy, but actually it's a magic user. Now it's not a very good magic user. They have what's called 30% Milestone magic, and each town has its own magic. So Milestone has types of magic, and this person is skilled at 30% level, meaning when they roll to cast any of the spells, they have a 30% chance of succeeding. So if we go to Milestone, their magic is just called basic magic. So these are the spells available to them: illusion, class conversion, and mesmerization. Not very useful spells. I haven't read them all, but I'll see whether that's going to help us. But I decided to hire them. Now, one thing I did notice in the rule book is it says if you hire them, you have to pay them up in advance. Meaning, so if you wanted to hire them for a month, you'd have to give them their money in advance. So I think I'm going to hire this person for, it'll take me, let's just say 4 days to get to Zafton in case the weather's bad. So I'm going to pay this magic user 4 gold pieces a day. So 3 silver pieces is equal to 1 gold piece. So that would be 12 silver pieces a day, which if I wanted to hire her for 3 days would be 36 silver pieces. I don't know if I have enough. Let me see. I have 66. Now it says you can make them buy their own food out of the money you give them. So if I gave her 36 silver pieces, that would hire her for 3 days, which would hopefully get us to Zafton, even moving 1 hex a day. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take that. I'm going to take out the 36 silver pieces, which is equivalent to 12 gold pieces. because I don't have any gold on me. This is who I decided to use as a figure. And what I decided was for characters with me and my party, I'm going to use miniatures. If it's NPCs, I'll probably go with the counters. So, and basically, in order to use them, you can just put them on the map with you. I mean, anywhere on the map. They don't have to be in the exact same hex. It only matters what hex your figure is in, not what hex, the characters traveling with you are in. So I'm going to do some bookkeeping. I'm going to get my food. I'm going to make her buy her own food. And then I'm going to pay her, the magic user. And I think tomorrow we're going to set out. Hopefully the weather will hold. Okay, I want to show you some of what I did here, because there was a little bit of bookkeeping involved. First of all, I filled out the magic user's information on my NPC followers table. So you get these tables in your character sheet. So this kind of gives you their stats. If the rules don't give you a stat, then what you do is you roll for it when you need it. So say I needed to check her presence, I would have to roll. You would use the normal modifier for the creating characters, characteristics, and then you would put that in there if you need it. Because sometimes it's just quicker in the rules to give you the basic stats. So she has an ability of 50, an endurance of 45, agility of 62. I used the gold I paid her to buy her 4 days of food and a dagger, which is about all she could afford. So she has 3 gold left. And one of the reasons you want to keep track of what you buy them, I know some of you might say, well, if she's buying her own food, why do I need to keep track of it? I'm just going to assume she eats food. Well, if she gets killed, I can take her stuff. And I mean, I'm not trying to be cruel or anything, but if we're in a battle and she dies and I'm still alive and I defeat my opponents, then I can get her food, her dagger, and her gold. Just like I could take anybody else's possessions if they die. So you do want to record that. Now, if I'm assuming she's eating food and stuff, I have no idea what she has left. All I know is she doesn't have the same, amount of silver that I paid her or gold that I paid her, because she's been, purchasing stuff for herself. So that's why I go ahead and do that. And that was the main bookkeeping. The other thing was, you can see my silver is going real fast. I'm down to 20 because I had to pay 10 for another night of lodging. And I had to pay her 36. And then I had another food I ate. So I really need to get out of town, or I really need to start doing something to bring in some funds. So that's what we're going to see going into tomorrow. The thing with the NPC's lodging, I could probably assume she paid for her own lodging, but I'm assuming she had lodging since this is her hometown. If we were in a different town, I'd make her pay for it. But since this is her hometown, I'm not going to take that out of her gold. All right, so let's see what the next day's weather's going to bring, and then we're going to mark off another day as well on the week. Okay. You wonder why I'm laughing. I pulled the next weather card, and it was exactly what I didn't want. There's fog. And so what fog does is, and you probably can't read it, I'll read it to you. It says, before any travel, all players must check for getting lost unless they own a lantern. There's a 60% chance they will get lost. No air travel is allowed today. So basically what fog does is, when you get lost, you roll for where you get lost in a random direction. So you roll a die, you determine which direction you're going. But then you roll another die to show how many hexes you get lost. So normally you could only move 2 hexes. So like if you got lost, it wouldn't be a big deal. You might be 2 hexes off. But because when you're lost, and I've been lost before, if you've ever been lost, you tend to wander back and forth, and you double back, and you actually go a lot further than you would normally go if you were, heading to a destination. So that's why it's 1 random die. So normally you could only move 2 hexes, but when you get lost, you could go up to 10, right? Because 0 is 10. So I mean, you could literally wind up on the other side of, the Overland. Now, because I'm out here in Milesdale, and there's the water. At some point, I would stop if I ran into the water because, I would notice, heck, I've reached the coast. I'm lost. That's what that signifies. But I don't have any intention of walking around being lost, because that's the worst thing that can happen is you get out there, you get lost, right? And you're running low on food. Your hired help is basically preparing to leave. I'm sorry, it got cut off there. Anyway, while I was downloading some of the video, I did look on the supply table, and I can actually buy a lantern for 16 silver pieces. So I've got 20 left, and that's what I'm gonna do. So at least my figure will be complete now. See, he's got his little lantern, and he's got his little sword. So he's actually equipped as he's indicated on there. Now, you can purchase supplies and then still travel, because purchasing supplies is not considered a daily action. So that's why it's important. If you have any questions about, what all you can do, if you look on the daily actions table, these are the things that are considered a daily action. So, resting to heal wounds, travel, engage in a battle, town activities, going to work, building or repair something, practice or training. It also indicates here, let's see if I can kind of get that for you. Each game session consists of 14 days or 2 weeks. Players may choose from several actions in a day, but they can only commit one per day. So the reason I put that in there with a game session is 2 weeks is because for every game session you complete, you get 2,000 experience points. So if you finish 2 weeks of play, then don't forget to give yourself the experience points. But so you can actually purchase stuff in a town, and that's not the daily action. The same thing as if you travel and you enter a town and you want to buy supplies before the day is out. You can buy the stuff because purchasing is not considered a daily action. Things like seeking news and information, seeking to hire help, studying magic, seeking an audience, all of those require a daily action. But just actually getting supplies for yourself and things does not. So I'm going to buy the lantern before we head out and equip my character with that. And then we're going to actually take our first shot at traveling. Okay. I'll be back. So when you travel, the first thing you want to do is you're going to do two things when you travel. The first one is you're going to check for an encounter. The second one is you're going to check to see if you get lost. You only have to check to see if you get lost if you are entering different terrain. Meaning if you're traveling from open land to open land, then there's no need to check for getting lost. You're staying kind of in the same typography. So, for example, where my character Milesdale is at, I'm sorry for moving the camera. If I was to cross over into the swamps, and that says swamps there, I'd have to first check for an encounter, and you check for the terrain you're entering, which would be swamps. After you resolve the encounter and you get ready to move your figure, you check for getting lost. And that's in the rules, but I just wanted to clarify that. In this situation, since I'm leaving the town and it's in open land, I'm staying in open land. I won't have to check for getting lost normally. But if I did not have my lantern, which I bought, and I probably need to put that in my journal, I'd have to check because of the fog. But since I bought the lantern, it said you only have to check if you don't have a lantern. So it didn't say there's a 60% chance or less with the lantern. It just says if you don't have a lantern, you have to check for getting lost. So I actually bought a lantern before I left. I just added that. I put that in my, you can't see this, in my log, just to remember I own one now. So I don't have to check for getting lost. So now we check for an encounter, and basically in the open lands, which is like the most frequented type of territory, you're probably always going to have some kind of encounter. The odds are high because, everybody travels in the open lands or plains. There's a 75% chance. So I'm going to roll, I'm going to use the red die as my I'm going to use the red die as my 10. Let's see what we get. So I rolled a, what is that? 46. So I do have an encounter. So that means I am going to need to pull an encounter card. So let's see what we get here. This is, the game is, holy cow. Trolls. You have met a group of mountain trolls. The trolls automatically attack. Do not roll. If the trolls knock you unconscious, they will tie you and drag you toward the infested mountains and hold you until you escape. They're 1 hex away, so they're right on top of me. Alright, I got to set this up, and there's 3 of them. I'm going to show you how to deal with this. Don't worry. Just hold on. Yep, that's my magic user, Cortana. That's her screaming when she saw the friggin' trolls. What a scary wimp. Anyway, I'm going to show you guys how to deal with this. These trolls are actually some of the nastiest NPCs you can encounter in the game. I mean, basically, look at them. Each of them has 100 endurance. And then it says every other round of combat, the trolls automatically heal 1d10 in wounds. Except 0 equals 0, meaning they can heal up to 9 wounds automatically every other round of combat. These guys are ferocious. There is no way you are going to be able to survive fighting trolls just walking out the door. This week is crazy. Maverick is getting a crash course on life in the wilderness. But there is something you can do in combat when you encounter an overwhelming enemy, and that's called flee or evade. So I'm going to instantly make a flee or evade action, and I'm going to grab the rules for that and show you how to do that real quick. If Cortana will ever stop screaming. Okay, so this is kind of an interesting rule. To do the evade action, and this is covered on page 123, is basically free. And it says even if you've already moved, you can evade. But it must be obviously away from your opponent. So obviously for Maverick, he can basically technically evade back into the town since he hasn't left. When you evade, however, your enemies, all of your enemies get a free strike against you, but it's with a -20 modifier. So that actually will help me. I think the trolls have an ability score, which is what they use for their attacks, of 63. They're using clubs, which would put it at 70. But -20, they would be at 50. So I should survive that. Whoa, sorry. And then I'm going to do one. So I'm going to have 2 of the trolls I will allocate, because I don't know which ones are going to attack me and which ones are going to attack Cortana. So I'm going to do a quick roll off. 1 through 5, it's me. 5 through 6, it's her. So basically we're each going to get 1, but then the last one I'll just do it like that. So let's roll. I rolled a 10. So I said 1 through 5. So 2 of them are going to attack Katana. You know, maybe they see she's the magic user, and so they tee up on her. Now, when you do an evade, normally your opponent or the NPC will either pursue you or they will take their free strike. In this instance, because I'm evading into a town, that's one of the things that automatically ends a pursuit, because you can get chased across the map. So they're not going to have the option of pursuing me. Normally with NPCs, though, if they have the option, you have to make a luck check. And if you, I think it says if you fail the luck check, the NPC pursues you. If you're lucky, they just kind of let you run off. So again, that explains why I said luck was so important. So I'm going to do these 3 strikes, 1 on me, 1 on Katana, and I'll let you know how that worked out. Okay, I'm back. That's the trolls resolving their attack. So the troll that attacked me missed. One of the trolls missed Cortana and one of them hit. I didn't have a wound stat for her, so I had to roll for her, I think it was for her endurance. Because did I have an endurance for her? Or what is it? Was it for the wounds? Let me check something. Because I actually wrote up her endurance. But now I'm thinking, I was looking at the wound box, so... Oh, her endurance is 45. I'm sorry. So she took 15 wounds, which would put her down to 30. So she's at 30 as far as her endurance score is. Actually, if one of the other guys had hit her, boy, she'd be close to being unconscious. But that's going to resolve that attack because we're back in the town. Now, unfortunately, I don't have any money to pay for lodging, so I'm going to have to sell something or else I'm going to get robbed. Plus, it's like the second, I think this is the second or third day that I've had Cortana working for me. So I've only hired her for 4 days, I think it was. So I'm actually running out of time to actually get out of town with her. And this is not looking good. It's hard getting the heck out of this town. So let me do some paperwork and then we're going to start I think this will be day 4. Okay, so a few things got resolved. Obviously the trolls are gone and we're back in town. I had to sell my lantern, which I got 8 silver pieces for. I only had 4 left, but I was able to come up with the 10, so I didn't have to worry about my stuff getting stolen. I had a question with Cortana as to whether or not she works. They work the days you hired them for. Start the day you hired them or the next day. So I just decided to go with the next day. Since I really didn't use her that day. I imagine if you play a situation where there's a night event, and sometimes that can happen, if you use them, then you would count that day. But I said other than that, you'd start the next day. But I did realize I only hired her for 3 days. So I've only got 2 days left with her. And if you see here, what I did on my chart was I put the circles. So I know when I mark off the last circle day, she's not working for me no more. The problem is it's only 3 days. So we're going to try to get out of town again today. We're going to pull another weather card. Hopefully we'll have good weather. And of course we're going to have to see what kind of encounter we get. Okay, so several things happened while I was away. And I just kind of did them all at once. I pulled the next day's weather card. And we actually got a decent card. It says sunny and clear. Any characters resting today healed plus 3 additional wounds. This would really help Cortana, but I'm not going to stop and rest just so she can heal wounds and then waste another day on my payroll. That's just the risk of hiring yourself out. So I went ahead and prepared to leave again. I wrote my encounter. I had an encounter and we encountered Vikings. Now there's a lot of text in there, but basically the thing that's important is they're 3 hexes away. There's 3 of them present. They have 50 gold each. They're level 2 each. These are their stats. They're pretty formidable, but I don't know what's going to happen yet. Because you have to do what's called roll on the NPC reaction table. Unless the card, like the troll card said they attacked automatically, so there wasn't no need to roll. But normally when you encounter NPCs out, out in the wild or whatever, out in the open, unless the card says otherwise, you roll on the NPC reaction table. And that table's in the book, but it's also in here. So I'm going to take this roll to try to get an idea of whether they're going to be friendly toward us or whether we're going to have a problem with them. Oh, shoot. Oh, shoot. Dang. I rolled an 11. It says NPC is hostile. They will attack and fight for 4 rounds of combat. So basically they're going to attack us. So I can either stand and try to fight them, and basically after 4 rounds, if I'm still alive, I guess they would break off the fight. Oh, shoot. Or I can try to flee again, do another evade option. I'm just getting ran right back into the town. And let me see. These guys are 78 ability with their battle axes. Minus 15 damage each battle. Okay. I'll be right back after I do this evade action again. Oh my goodness. That's the sound of me opening the door as I leave the weapon maker shop because I had to sell my broadsword. So basically what happened with the attack was two of the Vikings attacked me. This time only one attacked Cortana. The one that attacked her missed. The two that attacked me both hit. So I took 30 points of damage. So right now, because I had no armor, remember, I'm down to 58 on my endurance. The biggest problem was going back into the town. I had to pay for lodging again or take a 75% chance of being robbed from sleeping on the streets. So I had to sell my broadsword, which I paid 50 gold for. So I got 25 gold back. I then bought the short sword. As you can see, I'm wielding the short sword now, but that cost me 20 gold. So that left 5 times 3 was 15 silver pieces. I think I had 4, which was 19. So I got the 5 gold pieces was 15 silver pieces plus the 4 was 19, and I paid 10 for my lodging. So that leaves me with 9 silver pieces. Not to mention, it basically crosses off another day of my help. And I think this is the last day that Cortana's going to be with me. So I got to make some hard decisions of whether I'm just going to cancel the trip and try to stay here and earn some money, or whether I'm going to try to get out and hopefully we get some good wins or something to speed my travels to get into Zafton while she's still with me. You know, and maybe this time if we have a battle, we're just gonna have to fight. So we'll see. Okay, let me show you what I'm thinking here. I could get a job in town as a worker because I have a muscle score of 70% or higher. So the first day there's a 50% chance I would get hired. I'd earn 15 silver pieces if I'm working in a town, 30 in a castle. The problem is I'd have to work a minimum of 2 weeks. And so by the time I paid for my lodging, I'd basically be earning 5 silver pieces extra a day. So 5 times 14 is 50, times 4 is 20. So that'd be 70 silver pieces that I'd have to leave with. Which, I mean, I couldn't even get a good, decent weapon with that. The problem is if you leave early, then you can encounter the constables, meaning they'll call the police on you for running out on the job. You know, at a certain point in the game, you almost have to travel an adventure to find things to change your fate. You know, you need to find that I hate to say it, but that mark of an encounter where you can knock somebody over, take their golden weapons, and you know, you kind of set yourself right for a little while. So far I've been pulling some bad cards, but I've got to try to travel one more day. I can't stay here and try to do the job, so we'll see. Okay, I'm going to kind of summarize what happened. We decided to travel, or I did. The card we got was heat, which basically says we have to eat an extra meal today because of the heat. I did roll for an encounter. I encountered a Yeti. Now this is actually, you know, could be good or bad because, you know, if he joins you, he'll actually stay with you and help you to fight and things. I have a Yeti figure, but I couldn't find it, so I just used this ape from my Pathfinder collection. So now I'm about to roll on the NPC reaction table and see whether I'm going to be running again or whether I'm actually going to have a good result as far as maybe picking up somebody that will stay with me after Cortana leaves. So I rolled a 40. I don't think that's all that great. Let's see here. NPC reaction table. NPC is undecided. Make a presence check. If successful, they will cooperate, but will not follow you. If not successful, they will attack and fight until one of you are unconscious. So let's make this check. My presence score is Did I think I said it was 63? So that's why I told you all of these stats are presence. Already in this game I've used my luck, obviously my endurance. My presence is 63. So if I pass this, basically he'll just go away. And I rolled an 11 or a 10, so that means I did pass it because I rolled less than. So basically he's not going to follow me. He's going to go away. So that actually is not a terrible result, which means we can continue on with our travels, moving at our normal movement rate of 2. So we're going to do that and see if I can make it to Zafton. Plus I'll be able to camp outside tonight, so I don't have to worry about paying for lodging. Okay, welcome to day 5. As you can tell, Cortana has left. Her service being over with. Actually, I don't know. I think today is day 6. I'm sorry. But this is day 6, and Cortana has left. She's finished her service to me, which was her 3 days. I think I hired her on day 2, so she was with me day 3, 4, and 5. I really didn't get much use out of her. I mean, it just kind of wasted my money. But, it was worth a shot. Today is day 6. I decided to rest to heal wounds because there was a lunar eclipse in the sky tonight. And basically, what the lunar eclipse does, it says there's no travel is allowed. So I couldn't choose travel as an option because of the eclipse that's taking place. And if you try to travel, you're going to wind up getting
Sorry
lost.
about that. I had to dump some videos.
But anyway, because of the lunar eclipse affecting travel, I decided to just stay in my hex and rest and heal wounds. Every day that you rest, you heal 3 wounds. Unless you're at Morsh Monastery, which is further north, and you can heal 5 if you're there. But that took my endurance back up to 61. I think I was down to 58. So I have to eat for the day, which is going to leave me with 3 food. But now that I'm outside, I have the option of hunting. And there's rules for hunting in the game where you can actually catch your food to eat. You obviously can't hunt inside towns. But now that I'm kind of in the plains, if I wind up staying here and not going into Zafton, I could actually stay here and hunt and kind of build up some food that way. Tomorrow's day 7. Not exactly sure what I'm going to do, but just to kind of make this around 1 week video, we'll see. So it's going to depend on the weather in the morning. So as you may be able to hear, it's raining today. That was the weather card I pulled. And basically in the rain it says, I think this is going to affect my ability to travel. I'm not sure if you can read that. Come on, focus. So, characters traveling on foot without high boots -1 from their movement rate. All characters subtract 10 from their ability score. So basically, if you're fighting out in the rain, you're going to be less effective. So, with the rain though, that's not really going to affect me. If I want to get into Zafton, I can do that. Because I'm only 1 hex away. I don't have to check for getting lost. Because it is open plains. I would have to check for an encounter. So, I could either stay here and rest, which would get my endurance up to 64. I would eat I'd be down to 2 food units. Or I could go ahead and get inside the town. The problem is I don't have enough silver to pay for lodging. Unless I have an encounter on the way into town. I'm actually close enough that if I have a bad encounter, I could actually evade into the town. Flee into the town even with the 1 rate of movement. And I'd be okay. Let's do that. Let's go for broke. I need something. My luck has got to change somehow. So I'm going to roll for an encounter. I think it's 75% in open land. So I rolled a 50. So I do have an encounter. And who is this? A winged guardian. Oh, that's interesting. Alright, let me see what this is, and I'll get back with you. Okay, so this is a pretty cool card. These guys are apparently some type of winged sentinels. It says, this order of sentinels known as the protectors of light. They cannot be harmed by any weapon that is not magical. So there goes fighting them. The guardians have 99% Morsh Monastery magic and are 90% healers and clerics. They are responsible for all wizards and can be asked to join you to help fight a wizard or magician who has turned evil. If so, add 10 to your roll on the NPC reaction table. All magic or spells cast against them have a minus 50 modifier to their success roll, and they have the power to kill any level 3 or lower NPC wizard by forfeiting their life also, but they must be in the same hex as the wizard to do this. So that means this guy can basically just stand in the hex with an evil wizard and take that wizard out by just basically giving up his life. And believe me, level 3, 2 or 3 is high in this game. The highest level characters typically are level 4. But it says they will not attack any non-magical characters or NPCs unless they are wizards or magicians. Well, it doesn't really help me a lot, but it actually encourages me. It inspires me that maybe somebody up there is watching out for me as I travel. You know, to have seen this winged guardian, you know, this mighty creature of light, you know, and to know that he was willing to protect me if there was wizards or something. I think that's a good way to end the week. And I think that encourages me more than anything to keep going, to press forward. So stay tuned next week. Take care.
My name is Maverick. I'm from the town of Milesdale, and I live in the Overland. The Overland is a dangerous place. You never know what you will run into, and you never know what you will find. When at all possible, never ever travel alone. And when all else fails, it's better to run and live to fight another day. And in the end, if you have faith, hope will light your way.